The mentally ill generally aren't treated with compassion in superhero stories. When it comes to things like dissociative identity disorder, schizophrenia, or obsessive-compulsive disorder, mental illnesses are often villainized in a vast majority of fiction. See Batman's Rogues Gallery, because a billionaire socking the mentally ill in the mouth over and over again is just the best look, as well as one that's representative of mental health care in the United States. And while some improvements have been made in fiction recently, the mentally ill themselves are rarely the protagonists in these films, and even if they are the protagonists, see the Batman's traumatized take on Bruce Wayne, they generally aren't the protagonists that we should aspire to be. They often aren't inspirational superheroes. Moon Knight, however, changes this, upending negative mental health narratives like how American cereal companies upend the concept of a healthy breakfast. This Marvel Studios Disney Plus show features a mentally ill protagonist who is afflicted with dissociative identity disorder, i.e. once known as multiple personality disorder, and portrays both personalities in a heroic light. And while sure, these two personalities have their own character deficiencies, mental illness can be a toxic, multi-headed Resident Evil boss fight after all, but the main protagonist, or protagonists if you will, have many heroic qualities, and as a result, the show can be quite wholesome. Moon Knight is pretty good, and when combined with a great performance by the multifaceted Oscar Isaac, fun Egyptian god pantheon drama, and solid action, Moon Knight has an interesting 6-episode run that is worth undertaking. It is overall an enjoyable show. Moon Knight's positive qualities start with its story. The plot follows Stephen Grant, an employee at a British museum who is absolutely obsessed with Egyptian mythology and history, but he has a dark secret. Stephen lives day to day and has a various amount of unexplained mental illnesses, and has periods where he blacks out and loses track of time, sometimes various days even. And early on in the show, Stephen learns that the cause of these blackouts is Mark Spector, an alternate personality from Chicago, Illinois, who is the human avatar of Khonshu, the Egyptian god of the moon. As Khonshu's avatar, Mark is more or less a costume superhero vigilante meant to protect the travelers of the night. But now that Stephen's personality is breaking through, Mark has been having trouble staying in control, which is a serious problem because Stephen isn't very handy in a fight. It'd be like if Mike Tyson had an alternate personality that was named Ellen DeGeneres. It is not a good combo. Things get complicated by Ethan Hawke's Arthur Harrow, a man who is trying to free the Egyptian goddess Amit. If freed, Amit would call all the souls on Earth who either have or potentially will commit various misdeeds, something that Khonshu and by extension his avatar are against because free will, plots that copy Minority Report, and all that. And with that, it's up to Stephen and Mark to reconcile their differences, take on the role of the protector of the night, and save the world from Ethan Hawke. The story is quite good, mostly because it's character-focused, which honestly shouldn't be too surprising. Character is Marvel Studios' bread and butter, or Nicolas Cage in vast quantities of ham. It's a package deal. And with Moon Knight and its lead characters in Stephen Grant and Mark Spector, Marvel Studios continues this tradition. Oscar Isaac delivers a very nuanced performance of a man and his alter in emotional conflict over one another, and the show overall has a positive portrayal of dissociative identity disorder, trauma, and mental illness that is quite captivating. Through Stephen's pacifist mannerisms, Mark's take-action initiative, and the way the narrative portrays these two men as they try to work things out and share the same body, sometimes in humorous fashion, Moon Knight packages the normally maligned mentally ill community with incredible care, like the Postal Service before it was financially gutted by Republicans. It's just really well done. This portrayal is important to me personally, as someone who has various mental illnesses like OCD, bipolar 2, severe depression, anxiety, and at one point dissociative identity disorder, yes, the very thing that Moon Knight portrays extensively. It felt nice to see a mentally ill person be the hero of a story for a change. Like, make no mistake, dissociative identity disorder is so often villainized in fiction and serves as a plot twist as to how our hero shares their body with an alternate person who is secretly the bad guy, that it is honestly pedestrian at this point. It is a played out trope, but by making someone with DID the hero of the story, let alone a superhero narrative, this overly used plot device is given new life. It is just refreshing to see it portrayed in a wholesome manner. Furthermore, the DID portrayal itself feels accurate. While dissociative identity disorder is controversial in the psychiatric community, and DID means different things to different people depending on who has it, I found Moon Knight's portrayal of the illness to be overwhelmingly positive positive. Speaking for myself, Steven and Mark's fraught relationship with one another reminded me of the relationship my two alters, my original masculine personality and my repressed feminine one, had before we decided to bridge the gap and become Riley. Like the titular hero of the show, my two personalities were created through trauma, though my trauma was the result of societal and internalized transphobia, something that my masculine personality blacked out from our collective memory until our gender dysphoria became unbearable years later and my alternate feminine personality revealed herself. For a few years, masculine me shared my body with her. Sometimes when my masculine personality was in control, he could feel her presence, and sometimes they talked to each other verbally by staring into a mirror and bouncing ideas off each other in order to help process everything. It was a lot that we went through. And in terms of Moon Knight, as well as to get back on topic, I felt that all these things were actively conveyed through Mark and Steven. While sure, some of the DID in the show is streamlined so it's easier to digest in a visual storytelling medium. For example, Mark and Steven literally talk to each other through their reflections, and real-life DID, like mine, can be a lot more subtle as far as when personalities change who is in control. But overall, I thought that the show did a remarkable job, especially being pop entertainment, and the fact that, once again, Steven and Mark are portrayed as the heroes of the story, which means the world to me, just like awesome lesbian couples in film, because that's like nectar to my veins. Embrace the gay. Moon Knight has a few other positives as well. The Egyptian pantheon drama is overall pretty interesting and gets weird even by the standards of a Marvel Studios production, which is always a plus. Ethan Hawke's Harlow is a menacing antagonist, and May Kalamawi's Layla makes for a good romantic interest. But with all that being said, Moon Knight's positives only go so far. This is still a Marvel Studios production after all, one that is admittedly more self-contained, seeing as it doesn't really comment on the continuity of the Marvel Cinematic Universe as a whole, but it is still Marvel Studios fare nonetheless. There's MacGuffins and pre-scripted action beats, and thematically concludes exactly how you would expect it to. If you're like me, then you've seen all these things before. And honestly, in terms of production standard, Moon Knight is mostly an adequate version of a Marvel Studios show. When it comes to the nuts and bolts and the basic plot construction, it's solid save for Oscar Isaac's performance and the portrayal of DID, which once again is great. And that's overall the deal with Moon Knight as a whole. When it comes to being another MCU adventure, it's fine. It's serviceable, but Oscar Isaac and the DID narrative definitely elevated from being a solid show to being one that is actively good. With the DID portrayal, Moon Knight definitely has a thematic pulse and a resonant story for many folks with mental illnesses, because with Moon Knight, we now truly have heroes of our own. See ya. And with that, that was the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like rating, share, subscribe, ring the bell, and leave a comment telling me what you thought of Moon Knight. Also, please consider checking out my Patreon page. $1 a month gives you access to my Discord server, and $5 a month allows you to start making review requests. The link to my Patreon is in the description. And speaking of Patreon, I just want to thank my patrons, particularly my high tier ones and David, Samantha, Devlin, Mom, and Morgan. Thank you so much for supporting what I do. Love y'all.